Okay, well, thanks for having me. As Paul said, I'm Taylor Ulbrich, and I'm a graduate student at Michigan State University based at the Kellogg Biological Station. And today I'm going to be talking about a project where we're exploring how farmers' perceptions of soil health may affect their management decisions. I'm just going to minimize these little pictures so I can see my slides. And I just first want to thank everyone for letting me be here today and for taking the time out of your day to be here. So to get started, I want to first say that by training, I'm a plant microbial ecologist. And so I spent a lot of my time in the greenhouse looking at plant roots and how diverse soil microbes interact with plants. But because of my roots in Iowa, I'm also realized that it's really important to have a connection with how farmers are engaged with scientists and how the science can actually inform management practices. So outside of being a plant microbial ecologist, I've dabbled a little bit in social science in my PhD, and that's the project I'm going to be presenting here today. So I'm not a expert social scientist and am interested to get more of your feedback who are working in this field more regularly. So to begin, I'll start with the background for this topic, some project questions, the methods, preliminary data, and conclusions for this project. So to begin, we're at a Soil Health Nexus webinar series, so I don't have to tell all of you that there's increasing interest in soil health nationwide, but what is soil health and how do we manage for it? The continued capacity of soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans is one definition of soil health provided by the NRCS. But a recent survey actually conducted by the Soil Health Nexus found that different agricultural stakeholders, so extension, people working at an NRCS or USDA, and farmers have different definitions and perceived benefits of soil health. And because of this, this might contribute to miscommunication among stakeholders in adopting these soil health practices. In addition, there are many different ways that we can manage for soil health, including practices such as crop rotations, reduced tillage, and cover crops, as well as inputs such as manure and, more recently, microbial biologicals or bugs in a jug that claim to provide soil health benefits for farmers. So there's lots of ways that soil health is a complex topic with lots of different definitions. So it might not be surprising that we're still overall have low adoption of soil health practices, particularly in the Midwest. There was a recent Ag Census report in 2017, not as recent, I guess, anymore, but they found that the use of no-till and cover crops has increased fairly dramatically since 2012, so that's a positive. But overall, there's still 50% of the acres in most states are not using no-till and cover crops. So we still are in this adoption, and many people on this call are really working towards this goal. The end of the survey report from the Soil Health Nexus said that there's a need for education on implementing certain soil health practices and the benefits for those specific practices. So what does this mean? I think that it might suggest that because soil health is an abstract idea with long-term returns, that farmers may lack the concrete strategies by which to improve and evaluate soil health. So what I mean here is that if we see this farmer here, farmers have to make so many decisions. They have to think about their soil management with respect to soil processes, how they can measure the soil health or soil test indicators. So there's lots of things that a farmer needs to think about before they decide and how they decide to manage their soil. So what might this farmer be thinking, and how can we interrogate or learn more about what these farmers are thinking when they have to make these decisions? Well, we can use mental models. Mental models inform how individuals perceive and act on abstract ideas. So what are mental models, and what might they be able to tell us about soil health management? A mental model is defined as an explanation of someone's thoughts process about how something works in the real world. So in this diagram here, you can imagine the mental model is influenced by something someone hears. They understand it in a particular way, and both shapes how they view the world or that mental model. But their mental model also influences how they understand that. Their mental model also then in turn affects what they mean when they say something. And so you can imagine that if we had two different individuals who shared the same stories, they might have very different understandings of those stories given their own mental models. And so I think this offers a really great way to dig into more of these nuances and why education efforts may not be working in the most effective way, and why farmers may not be adopting soil health practices. It's more complicated, and I know most of you know that. So an example of where soil mental models came into play is in a study by Hoffman et al. In 2014, where they worked with California wine growers, viticulturalists, and they surveyed these farmers to learn about how they perceived or their mental models on sustainability. And those farmers that had a broader understanding of sustainability and specifically could link sustainability to concrete management strategies, those farmers were more likely to adopt more sustainable management practices. So this was, I think, a great example of why the way someone perceives something and the complexity in which they perceive something, and the way they connect practices to mechanisms, for instance, in soil health, might influence their management decisions. So overall, farmers' mental models of soil health may influence their ability to concretely manage for soil health and the effectiveness of extension activities. And Paul, before I go on, should I be checking this chat as I'm going? Nope. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, I'm checking it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, please interrupt me if there are any questions throughout. So that's the overall background. The research goals then for this project are threefold. First, we will survey Midwestern farmers' knowledge of and adoption of soil health practices. We hope to delve deeper into how farmers' mental models of soil health will inform their management decisions, and discuss how farmer engagement activities could be improved by considering farmers' mental models. So for the first goal, we will use a survey where we survey farmers' ideas of soil health management, their knowledge on soil health, and their perceived benefits or concerns for soil health. We'll use interviews to interrogate these mental models of how farmers manage for corn yield and soil health. And lastly, we propose to use a workshop with a diverse cohort of agricultural stakeholders to view their thoughts on farmer mental models. So to begin with these methods in the survey, which was completed in 2019, that's why I put a check mark there. This was a panel farmer survey that was conducted at the Kellogg Biological Station through the Long-Term Ecological Research Site. And this project is led by Dr. Sandy Marquardt-Piet, who's a committee member on my PhD committee, and she has been really great in teaching me the ropes of social science and was gracious enough to let me put several questions about soil health on these surveys so we could learn more about these nuances of farmers' decisions to adopt certain practices. So in this survey, we surveyed the Eastern Corn Belt, 4 states, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, and Michigan. And we surveyed farms with greater than 100 acres. The power of the survey is that it started in 2017 and it's been sent for multiple years. I think they are just now starting to get surveys back from the 2020 year. And this is a really unique sampling design and allows us to see how farmers' practices are changing throughout time. And in 2019, we can connect those changes in practices with their views and perceptions of soil health. So for the soil health survey questions, we asked about farmers' interest in soil health, their self-identified knowledge about soil health, as well as their perceived benefits and concerns about soil health. We also asked about farmers' perceived knowledge and use of soil health practices such as no-tillage and cover crops, and their perceived knowledge and use of microbial biologicals such as seed treatments or soil amendments. This was a particular area of interest for me, being a microbial ecologist, because that's a hot topic in in this field, and I'm interested in learning more how farmers are thinking about this. The second, we use interviews to look at farmers' mental models. And to do this, this will be done in December of January 2021. It was supposed to be done this spring, but you all know how that goes. But now we have some more time to plan this method. So we're going to use a subset of around 20 farmers that were already surveyed in Southwest Michigan. And during these interviews, we want to learn about how soil health fits into farmers' goals to increase corn yield, which is most farmers' primary goal. What factors are most important to increasing soil health? And what research needs to be done on soil health? And I'm interested in this because I think that we should be valuing farmers' knowledge about soil health just as much as scientists' knowledge. And so I'm really curious to learn what they think are the next steps going forward. And rather than just having a sit-down interview talk back and forth, which can be really informative, I'm going to use a more physical, interactive way to interview these farmers, where we will talk about, for instance, here, this picture, soil health. What things can you write in the circles that influence soil health? How do those things influence soil health? Is it positively or is it negatively? How much control do you have over those things? Do those things interact? Do soil microbes interact with soil structure? Does that matter? And I've already done several example or practice interviews with colleagues at the Kellogg Biological Station to troubleshoot this, and I've been excited that even in that subset of 4 people, I've gotten really different results. So I'm really excited to see what we learned with this method. So finally, we hope to do a workshop next spring with agricultural stakeholders. This would be funded by the SARE. I put in a SARE graduate student proposal, and we'll find out in July if we get it. But this, if we do, this would be a workshop that we'll conduct in March or April 2021. And the value of this workshop is that different agricultural stakeholders can come together to exchange ideas to learn how to best facilitate farmers' adoption of these different practices. And these methods have been tried and used by Adam Reimer and Julie Dahl at the Kellogg Biological Station, and they found that it's been a really fruitful learning experience for everyone involved. So we hope to have about 30 participants from different organizations that play a large role in agricultural leadership in the state. And then we will disseminate our results, discuss them, and break out into small groups where each of these individual groups can discuss how they and their farmers conceptualize soil health. So given the results that we find, do they think about soil health in different ways or in the same ways? And if or how understanding the way that farmers perceive soil health or these soil health mental models could improve their farmer engagement activities, or how it might shift the way they're communicating about soil health with their farmers. So I think this will be a really valuable experience to learn from one another and to understand how understanding more of the nuances of farmers' perceptions of soil health could inform our outreach activities. So I'm excited to hear more from you all during the breakout sessions about your thoughts on this, as especially those of you in Extension with more experience working on a day-to-day with farmers. So that's what I have. I'm just going to check the chat really quick. Someone asked if we're considering minimum tillage, reduced tillage. Yes, we are, and I'll present that in the results in just a second. Thank you. And we have another question about how were farmers chosen for the overall survey and subset for the interviews. So for the survey, it was, I'm going to be honest, I don't know all the details on this, but I know that it was a random subset of farmers that were farming at least 100 acres of corn or soybeans in the counties that were on that map. I would have to, I'm not sure on all the exact details. My Sandy Marquette-Piet, who led these surveys, knows all of the details of that. But how we subset it for the interviews, we're still working on that, but it'll be farmers that are in the counties, about 5 counties within an hour radius of where I am to make this feasible. So in Southwest Michigan, and then we're considering splitting those farmers that some that are using more conservation practices and some that aren't, to kind of get an extreme end in terms of these mental models potentially. Thanks for the questions. So for preliminary results of this survey that was conducted in 2019, we had a 35% response rate which was an average of 2 surveys that went out. And this 35% response rate, for those of you who don't do survey work, is actually really quite good, especially for surveying farmer communities. So we were really excited about this. We surveyed 4 states, and there were around 2,000 responses. The average age of the farmer was 55, and the average number of years that they had been farming was 32 years. And the average cropland size was about 1,000 acres. So before I go into all of the data, I'm just going to show you an example of how this data will look. And so on the x-axis, you have the percentage of responses, and on the right-hand side are all of the responses that are in agreeance with that question. And so in blue and on the right-hand side, whereas on yellow are the responses in disagreeance, and in the center part are those responses that we're not sure are neutral. And the bars will also pop up the percent, which is the percent of agree and strongly agree, not sure, or strongly disagree and disagree. So this lets us look at quickly. This is actually just started analyzing this data last week. We're still sifting through and cleaning a lot of it, so it's preliminary, but exciting what we're seeing. So start, how much do farmers feel they know about building soil health? So this is farmers' self-perceived knowledge, and 50% of farmers feel that they know some or a great deal about building soil health. And when we look at that in context to other practices, we see that compared to using no-till at the top, farmers feel that they know more about using no-till, but compared to using cover crops, which is another common soil health management strategy, farmers feel they know more about building soil health than with using cover crops. And it's not surprising to me that the use of these biological seed treatments was lower in farmers' use, just from conversations I've had with farmers about them being more skeptical about these treatments, and since they're so new on the market, it's not really sure what their role is in the systems yet. So are farmers interested in learning more about soil health? Overwhelmingly, yes. 77% of farmers agreed that they would like to learn more about how to improve soil health. So I think this is really promising for a lot of the effort that's being done in the soil health movement. Yes, farmers are interested in learning more about soil health. Do farmers believe in the benefits of soil health? So we asked, to what extent do you agree that healthy soils can increase yields, increase drought resilience, and reduce chemical inputs? And in all of these cases, it was overwhelmingly yes, that farmers believe in the benefits that healthy soils can provide. And I was really shocked actually about farmers believing that 96% of farmers believing that healthy soils can increase yields, because from conferences I always thought that this was more of a discrepancy and why some farmers are less prone to want to adopt some of these practices. So I'd be interested in what all of you think on this. Are farmers using soil health practices? So they're interested in them, they're fairly knowledgeable about them, but are they using them on their farm? So this is no-till, which we quantified as minimal disturbance, conservation tillage, which is greater than 30% residue, and planted cover crops. And less than 50% of all farmers were using these practices. I would say that these numbers, from what I've seen, are similar to other surveys in the state and in the region on terms of farmer adoption of these practices. But still, less than 50% of the farmers are using these practices to some extent on their fields. Now, we might say that some are more than 50%. I'm noticing now here, this gray section is yes, some fields. So in some areas, there is over 50%, but overall, there's still more adoption that can be done. So not most. What was interesting to me is, so less than half of the farmers are using these practices, but when we asked a question about if farmers have tried to improve soil health in the past years, most did. So here's a figure where we said, In the last couple of years, I have taken steps to improve the health of soils I farm, and 77% of farmers said, yeah, I have. I've taken steps to improve health of soils I farm, which I think is really exciting, but leaves me wondering, what do farmers understand by improved soil health, and what practices are they using to do so? Because it doesn't seem to have been captured in the other practices that we surveyed in this farm. Or maybe they understand something different by improving soil health. So to wrap up here, our preliminary conclusions are that farmers are interested in and believe in the benefits of soil health. They claim to be working to improve soil health, yet most farmers are not using the traditional soil health management practices. So I'm left wondering, what practices are farmers using to improve soil health? What does improve soil health mean to farmers? And can farmers' mental models of soil health help to inform the discrepancies in the differences between their belief and knowledge in soil health and the action on their farms? So that's all for me. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll look at the questions now, take more questions. I have a lot of people to thank, a lot of people who helped me practice the interview, my PhD committee, and especially Sandy Marquette-Piet, who has been really supportive of this, and my PI, Sarah Evans, who's been supportive of me branching out for microbial ecology. And if you have any comments or feedback, as I said, I'm still developing these methods, and I'd love to hear from you, and my email is listed. That's all.